Now, remember now your creator in the days of your youth. You know, we Americans, we say creator, but it's really creator, but you know how we Americans would speak. You say, well, Odie, you're not an American. I have a U.S. passport, so that makes me an American. Whether by naturalization or whatever, it's still making me an American. Remember, now your creator in the days of your youth. The word remember here is not talking about bringing back to memory something that we have learned. I explained that to you at the outset. The word remember here, it basically saying be mindful, stick a pin, recognize. Remember means mindful. What else? Mindful. I gave you a list of things what it meant last time. Remember means mindful, be mindful, think on, to mark so as to recognize, meaning stick a pin. So it's not talking about something we have learned and we are trying to ask God or someone to help us get it back to a memory. That is a different Hebrew word in Ecclesiastes 12 when it says remember. It says be mindful, think on, and recognize your creator or creator in the days of your youth. Last Sunday I said something interesting. The devil is fighting for you and God is fighting for you. Or we can say it this way, God wants you, all of you, and the devil wants all of you. Sad to say, it seems as if the devil is winning concerning our young people. Keep that in mind. Now, don't forget, sometimes people can say certain preachers are hard on young people, but I can speak from experience why. I was once young. I said that last time. I was once young. I face all the temptations young people are facing today. There were times I made dumb mistakes, dumb moves, gave in at times, but I always had a heart for God. My heart was always for God, for church, and to do the things of God. So that led me to who I am and where I am today because I was determined the devil is not going to get me. Yes, class? That's your determination. That's your decision to make. You have to make that decision. The devil is not going to get me. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. As a young person and as an adult and even an older person, the world has a lot of pleasures to offer. The world is offering you a good package. Entertainment, good time, feel good. Everybody's doing it. And when you feel convicted that everybody's doing it, you too will give in to everybody's doing it. Yes, class? So you have to be determined, I am going the way of God. I'm taking a different path, a different road. Yes? So remember now your creator in the days when? In the days of your, when you're young. Because if a foundation can be laid when you are young, a godly foundation, man, it's going to take a lot of hell to get it out of you as you're growing older. Amen. It's going to take a lot of hell to get certain things out of you when it comes to God, out of you as you're getting older. Why? There was a solid foundation laid when you're young. Remember your creator when? Not when you're old. Not when you're maturing, when you're young. When does a doctor take an abortion? Most times. Early. It's easier. It's easier, it's quicker, it's a quicker process than if the mother is 8, 9 months and trying to have an abortion. No, you're risking the life of two individuals, the baby and the mother. Okay? So it's always easy. In the infant stage, the early stages, that's when an abortion takes place. Now, I said something interesting last week that one unsaved, ungodly man said, to control the future, is right now to get a hold of our young people through 3 avenues. Remember those avenues? Music, sex, and drugs. If the man said, no, this man doesn't go to church, doesn't have any connection to God, but he gave a secular, devilish, ungodly prophecy, and he said, if we're going to control the future generation, we can only do it by now controlling this generation through sex, drugs, and music. I had my illustration last week. I spoke about my nephew. I can pay this guy to not have his earbuds in the house. So just in case we are trying to get his attention, or in case the fire alarm goes off, he can hear it. And I can tell him today, I can take away his phone for 2-3 days, he's going to put it right back in. Why? Music. Boom, boom, boom. I told you last week, I can bet you $1,000. My nephew is not walking around the house with his earbuds in and listening to somebody read the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And he's not saying, read that Bible. That's what my uncle preaches. Hallelujah. That's what he preaches. That's not, I can bet you $1,000. He's not listening to anything gospel. The rappers put certain lines in their songs that are evil, wicked, that brings strong influence on this generation. And this generation goes out and do it. Judith is here from the Virgin Islands. My brother lived in the Virgin Islands. I lived there for 15 years of my life. First 5 years and went away, then went back for 10 years as a pastor and a police officer. There's a man in the Virgin Islands by the name of Daddy Friday. That's his nickname, Nicholas Daddy Friday, a musician, singer. I'm not exaggerating. Judith is here as a witness. He died prematurely, 44, I believe. Diabetes or something of that nature? Something of that nature. I met him a couple times. And Daddy Friday died very young. One of the largest funerals in the Virgin Islands. One of the largest. Daddy Friday is an entertainer, singer, has his own band, jam band. Name of the band, you can Google it on YouTube and you'll see what I'm talking about. And if he tells his crowd to jump over the waterfront in the beach, they will do it. If he tells them take off something and wave, they will do it. If he says trample on a car, they will do it. Music. He had a favorite song out called Kill the Rabbit. Most time rabbits are white. He was talking about killing a white person. If you see a white person, trample over him or her. And his crowd will attempt to do it through. Now, when he's normal on the street, doing his daily normal life, he's a good guy. When he gets a microphone and his audience and the music, he turns into another man. And his audience is going to do what he says to do. And they used to have something called boat rides. You get on the boat, you go in the ocean. And music is, you're just sailing from one end of the island, music. And if he says jump overboard in the ocean, I bet your last dollar they will do it. I wish God's people can be on fire like that. I wish. I told you the man was right. The man was on point. To control the future is to get a hold of this generation. And all I need to do to get a hold of this generation is dangle 3 baits in front of their eyes. Music, sex, and drugs. Very young age, at a very young age, this generation is obsessed with marijuana, weed, and drugs. They're obsessed with it. That's why we read many times, some people, they die overdose. How do we destroy this generation? Drugs, sex, and music. I've heard stories of people say, my weed was laced with something. Somebody laced it with something, meaning they're trying to take you out. They're going to put something in it to make it more powerful than it should be. See, that's why I don't do it. Never have a desire for it. Doesn't bother me. Beyonce came here a couple of years ago when we had Georgia Dome. Georgia Dome seats 70,000 people. Georgia Dome was sold out. Not to hear the word of God, for music. People paid money. I didn't even know who was Beyonce until she came here. People would ask me, do you know? I don't know. That's not my interest. Do you know? Where are you from? That's not my interest. Don't make me, I don't feel bad. I don't know the entertainers. I learned about Rihanna when I moved here. Georgia Dome was packed out because of music. Front row seats were expensive and they were sold out. I met a couple. At that time, I was doing Uber at that time. Picked up a young couple, no older than 22. Tagged along their 17 and 18-year-old cousins. Finding money for motel. Then their tickets to see Beyonce. And the tickets were cheap, $70, I believe, way up. Can hardly see her shake her behind on stage. But they're going. Beyonce left here packing, more of a millionaire, and left struggling folks broke who already poor. Gave her all your money. She didn't get mine. I got better things to do with my money. I'm in class. The man said, if we're going to destroy and control the future, we're only going to do it now by this generation being controlled. And how are we going to control them? Through sex, drugs, and music. I told you the story when I went to the Virgin Islands. I was trying my very best to get into the high schools, to be a motivational speaker into the high schools. I thought I had something to say. Meeting after meeting, meeting after meeting. They had a hard time letting me into their school. Finally, the principal asked me, and the assistant principal, dean of students, what are you going to talk about, Pastor Joseph? You know, I had my best suit on. I put on my best voice. I said, I'm going to talk about pursuing your dreams and your goals and your desires. And this principal said to me, no, I don't want you to talk about that. She said, I don't have a problem with that in my school. If you can come into my school and speak about drugs, sex, violence, and weapons, I'll let you in. Almost the same thing what the man prophesied. She said, I have problems with sex, drugs, weapons, and violence. If you can speak on that, I'll let you into my school. What did I do? I called my mentors to mentor me. I went to sit on a man's couch once a week for him to mentor me on dealing with those topics in the school. Remember now your Creator in the days of Let's get a hold of this generation when they are young. We can lay a foundation. We can plant something solid in that generation when they're young. I know my nephews and my niece, they are tired, bone tired, of getting up on a restful, beautiful, peaceful Sunday morning to come to the house of God. I know they're tired of that. They're tired. They want to sleep in. They want to sleep in. But I'm trying to put something in them about God. Because my stepmother, my father, my mother, my stepfather laid a foundation about God and church inside of me and made me who I am today. And God bless my mom's soul. She's gone. She laid a solid foundation. So I'm trying to lay a foundation in my neighbor. I know this is not, they'll rather go to the beach on a Sunday morning. They'll rather be on the gadgets on a Sunday morning. But I'm trying my best to do what Solomon said, for them to have a foundation now that they are young. Well, I should say it this way. I remember when I was getting ready to apply for the police department in the Virgin Islands, when I first got there, I applied and passed the test, and I'm not going to do it. It's going to prevent me from traveling. A couple of years passed by, I just can't get rid of this police thing out of my system. Called up the place and I said, because I knew there was a cutoff age to be a police officer. Called them up. I said, what's the cutoff age to be a police officer? They said 44. I said, okay, man, I'm still way young. So I said, hey, I took the test some years ago, blah, blah, blah. They checked the files. They said, well, your test scores only lasted for 2 years. You'll have to come in and retake the test. What's my point? The point is, the police department had a cutoff age at 44. Military has a cutoff age. 34. Now, when you get to be a certain age in America and certain places around the world, you have to retire. Some places it's 62, 65, 62 years Social Security, something of that nature. But they have a cutoff age at 65, you can retire. Why? They're saying you can't perform as you once did when you were younger. You're working too slow now. You're moving too slow now. You're not as sharp as you once were, so we have to let you go, cut you loose at 65, yes? Yep. So the police department, they're saying 44 because if you're older, we're not going to get maximum performance from you. So there's a cutoff age. Are you tracking so far? So I'm trying, my point is, Solomon says, remember your creator in the days of your cutoff age. Now that you're young, strong, vibrant, is somebody keeping time, Shakira? Now that you're young, strong, vibrant, and aggressive, let's make full use of you now. So the military, the police department, they have cutoff age because they know at a certain age, as you're older, you cannot perform as you should when you're older. Yes, class? They send you home at 65. Why? Your bones are getting old. You're slower now. You're not as sharp mentally anymore. Yes, class? So that's why he says, remember your creator when? Here's something interesting. Never said remember your God. Remember your? Never said remember your God. Why? Because you can have your own individual God. There's 33 different gods in India. So that's why Solomon was specific when he said, remember your creator. Why? Creator is somebody who can invent, create, produce. If your God can't do that, you shouldn't worship him. Remember I spoke about the different gods last Sunday, the god of Chemosh, Baal, Ashtaroth, and Molech. Molech and Chemosh, these were gods they worshipped back in those days. And the gods Molech and Chemosh, they would sacrifice their children in the fire to these gods. Imagine that. Women gave birth to their children and sacrificed them to Chemosh, their god, Molech, their god. Today, Molech and Chemosh is abortion. Molech and Chemosh today is abortion. Back then, they sacrificed their children to Molech and Chemosh, the gods. Today, Molech and Chemosh is abortion. So you can have different gods. So Solomon wanted to make a distinction. He didn't want to say, remember your creator, because you can remember the Braves stadium. And the Braves and what Kobe Bryant team was again? Lakers. Miami Heats. Miami Dolphins. Everybody can have a different God. So he didn't say, remember your God. He says, remember the one who created you, the one who gave you life. Remember him. Not what you made, handmade, not what you worship and call a God. Remember they made a God in the Old Testament, in Genesis 32, Exodus 32. What did they make? A calf, a golden calf, and call it their God. Worship him and dance around him. Remember Elijah had this contest on the mountain and said, whoever God answers by fire, let him be God. So he said the prophets of Baal, you go first. You call on your God. Didn't say call on your creator. Call on your... So Ecclesiastes, Solomon wanted to make a distinction. Didn't want to say call on your God. Because many different people are going to call on their different gods. So he said, call on your creator. So Elijah said, you go first. Call on your God. Didn't say call on your creator. Call on what you call God, what you know to be God. And they started calling on their God from morning until noon, and they're screaming and they're jumping and they're shouting. And Elijah stood back and Elijah said, oh man, call a little louder, shout a little louder. Jump some more. Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he's on a vacation. Now, strangely enough, the word vacation, Elijah was now being humorous and sarcastic. When he said, maybe your God is on a vacation, why he's not responding? Because remember now, he told him, you go first. Shout. Scream. They cut themselves and their God is not responding. Because Elijah said, whoever God answers by fire from heaven, he is God. And Elijah said, you go first. 400 prophets of Baal, you go first. They were worshiping Baal, their God. They scream, they shout, they dance, they cut themselves. No response from their God. And Elijah said, I'm going to go now. Now he gave them ample time, hours and hours, and he was being patient. And when he said to them, maybe he's sleeping, maybe he cannot hear you, maybe he's busy, maybe he's on a vacation. I said the word vacation in the Hebrew is a strange word. It doesn't mean you take a plane or a boat or cruise and go on a vacation. The word vacation in the Hebrew means maybe he's on the toilet, so he can't hear you. Research it when you go home. The word vacation, when Elijah said, maybe your God is on a vacation. You know, when you're in the bathroom, you know, you're not coming out. Nobody can get your attention until you leave the bathroom. So Elijah was telling them, maybe he's on the bathroom, using the commode. And after they're done with all the drama, after so many hours, Elijah now stepped up to the plate and he called on his God. And he said a 63-word prayer, bowed his head between his knees and prayed a 63-word prayer. And God brought fire down from heaven, consumed the sacrifice. And matter of fact, before that, he poured water all in the trenches. And the fire licked up the water, the sacrifice, and everything. His God answered by fire. That's why Ecclesiastes, Solomon said, remember your creator, not your God. Because any one of us can raise a hand and say, well, I have a God. I'm worshiping this God or that God. I believe in this or that. Remember your creator in the days of your youth. Remember means to be mindful, think on. What do you think on during the day? What do you think on during the week? What do you think on? God wants us to think on Him. I put me in the bunch. We think on things more than we think on God. He said, remember, think on. How often are you thinking on God? We think on everything else. Our mind is filled with everything else, occupied with everything else than God. And Solomon says, think on, be mindful, recognize. Mindful means conscious or aware of something or someone. Okay? Mindful, you are conscious and aware of something or someone. Now, let's review a little bit and keep moving. Look at verse 1 one more time. Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come. Before what? And the years draw near when you say, I have no pleasure in them. Now, he says, before the difficult days come. That means they're coming. Guaranteed they're coming. What are these difficult years? When we get old, feeble, slow, we're not the same anymore. We're different now. Sickness, pain, you're more concerned about your doctor's appointment than the things of God. Okay? Look at verse 2. While the sun and the light, the moon and the stars are not darkened. Meaning, now that you are full of life and energy, let God be priority in your life. That's why sometimes we look at the young people and we say, the lights are bright. When the lights are bright, that means they're full of energy. It's a good time to give God your all, okay? Look at the next verse. Verse 3. In the days when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men bow down, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look through the windows grow dim. Grow dim. Now, let's review once more in this verse. Remember what I said last time. Paul did it, and now Solomon is doing it. He's comparing the human body. He's using this analogy of the human body to bring a point across, and using the human body in reference to a house. He's referencing it to a house. Paul did the same in the book of Corinthians. And here's Solomon again in Ecclesiastes doing it the same way, and he's using it, the human body, as a house. I remember I did a funeral in the Virgin Islands some years ago, and my topic is house condemned, occupant had to move. That was my topic. House condemned, occupant had to move. When a house is condemned, you can't continue living there. So the house, the physical body, condemned, died, the man died. So the spirit, the occupant, had to move and left that condemned house. So Solomon is saying, this is a house. He's using it as a comparison, as a house. And now he's drawing his point. Look at his first point. In the day when the keepers of the house tremble. What are the keepers of the house? I said last time, the hands. Your hands. I showed you the best illustration I could last time is Muhammad Ali. The man who was the greatest. The man who said in the ring, I can move like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I'm the greatest. I mean, he was very braggadocious in the ring because the man had it going on, right? He had it going on. But Muhammad Ali today, who had some strong keepers that were sharp, fast, could knock you out. I mean, he would rhyme and tell you what round he would knock you out in, okay? Now, that same guy, the keepers of his house, his hands are like this now. Because of what kind of disease? I mentioned it last time. Right. The keepers of his house, and Muhammad, who was once the greatest, is moving like this now. Remember, our topic in chapter 12 is what? The reality zone of life. The reality, let's say it loud and strong, class. The reality zone of life. Now, we have entered in chapter 12, the reality zone of life, meaning if you don't believe anything about the Bible, chapter 12 brings us to reality. Chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes brings us into the reality zone of life, a zone you cannot avoid. Mike and I are good friends. He's not going to leave the church. David and I are good friends. Not going to leave the church. But at one time, these guys had the best afro in town. Maybe some Jerry curls too. I tried Duke when I was younger. Man, I had my hair slicked back with Duke when I was 17. Man, I look like an Indian man. Listen, I said it last time. Every generation has a hair fad. My friend Robert has his hair fad. Right? My brother, how long have you been growing this now? What? Over 50, 17 years. And he's not cutting it for Jesus. Well, one time he made a promise to cut it. One time. My brother is my brother, so he can't leave the church. I'm gonna tell his business right now. I remember one time at the other building when we had the church location on Atlanta Street, I mentioned something about my brother or whatever. And a lady who was there for the second time or first time, she approached my brother after church. Oh, don't you get embarrassed? My brother said, no, I'm accustomed to it. Remember what I said. Whenever I use my family, it's not for embarrassment purposes, but to drive my point home. That's why I use my family. And somebody like Michael and David who won't leave the church. Because if I pick on you, you're not coming back. So my brother was in love with this girl in Nevis. I mean, I know the girl pretty. I think God took an extra day to make the girl. And my brother wanted that girl. And my brother said to his cousin, I'm willing to cut my locks for that girl. Only time he was going to cut those locks. No other time. Bad girl. Every generation has its fad with the hair, right? So I'm not beating up on the generation. I said earlier at the outset, I was once young. But I had to determine which path, which road I'm going to take. So I had my hair fad too. And my hair fad was Mr. Duke. You may not know about Duke, but Duke, when you put Duke in your hair, man, you look like an Indian boy. You're slick going to school. You're slick going to church. Man, everybody just love your hair. And you think it's your hair. It's not yours. Duke. Everybody has their fad. So these guys had their afro back in those days. You grew afro back in those days? Yes. You did? You too? I had a box. You had a box. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, so what my point is, as we grow older, we are now entering into the reality zone of life. A zone, listen to me. Michael can go to that guy, Bosley Hair Repair. You can go there all you wish. It's going to only last as long. Because nature will outlast Bosley Hair Repair. Yes, class? We are now in the reality zone of life where we realize this body gives up. Here's what I will call this body. After a while, it will have wear and tear. Yes, class? Anything that we use, after a while, there's going to be wear and tear. After a while. Your car, after a while, the nice car that you didn't want to pick anybody up in, you kept the plastic on as long as you could on those seats. The car smell is in the seat. I mean, you pray it will never leave. But after a time, because of wear and usage and time, it's not the same. Wear and tear. The same way our body, anything that is used, our body will sustain wear and tear. I told you, man, my 17-year-old picture, I was tempted to bring it today when I was 17. God took 2 extra days to make me when I was 17. That's how handsome I was. I was eating lunch one day and some friends I made along the way at a restaurant, and we're talking about our parents, we're talking about our grandparents, talking about, whatever, and they asked me, how old are you? And, we're conversing, and I said to him, I showed him a picture when I was 17, he and his sister. When he saw the picture when I was 17, that guy said, whoa, what happened? I said, age. 17 to now, some time has elapsed. And there is now wear and when I first bought my SUV, my Toyota 4Runner, oh man, that was slamming. Now I'm driving, there's noise, creaks. Now I don't like it anymore, it's annoying. When your car is making noise, it gets annoying, right? Yes. And it's because of after 11 years, approaching 12, wear and tear. It's going to wear down. Our bodies, here, we are entering the reality zone of life. You cannot avoid it. Listen, it doesn't matter how many times you take your car to the mechanic, after a while it will give up. Wear and tear. So what is my point? What is Solomon's point? We must enjoy this reality zone of life. Don't fight it. Don't hate it. But live it gracefully. Some people fight this age, the reality zone of life. They're fighting it too. Listen, you can't win. Go through that phase gracefully. You can't fight old age. The man said, I build a city. And this is not going to happen in my city. This is not going to happen in my city. This is not going to happen in my city. That billionaire in Texas said all that. And one old man in the back of the room raised his hand and said, sir, can I say something? The man said, old age will enter your city unannounced. Sickness will enter your city unannounced. And death will enter your city unannounced. Doesn't matter how good of a security system you have. They're coming. Age, old age, sickness, and security. And I'm sorry, old age, death, and sickness. He said, the keepers of the house tremble at your hands. You get old. If you look at a person who's older, and they're holding something in their hands, a cup of tea or a book or a pen, their hands are going 1,000 miles per hour. It's not that they're nervous. The keepers of the house is giving up. It's fighting to be stable, but can't be stable anymore because of wear and tear. If you don't acknowledge the fact that your body is going to wear and tear, you're going to constantly fight old age and be uncomfortable in your old age. Oh man. Before my mom passed, I used to feel like, I used to say I'm going to live to see 120. That's not my desire anymore. I have no interest to live to see 120 anymore. Why? My mom's death taught me a lesson of reality. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of funerals in the Virgin Islands. I've done funerals here. I've done funerals in Miami. But I'm telling you, death never became so real to me until my mama passed. I was thinking yesterday on the flight back from Jamaica. I was thinking of my mama. When I get home, she's going to say this. You made it back safe? I asked God to bring you back safe, and thank God he did. Then she's going to ask, how was the trip? I don't hear those words anymore. Approaching 2 years. When I walk in that door every day at the end of my day, you okay? How was the day? I don't hear those words anymore. There are times I do what the faith preachers say to do. Call those things as were. I sit downstairs in my car sometimes for hours trying to call my mama into the house. I go inside, she's not there. I realize the reality of death. So I have no interest anymore about living 120. Here's my interest now. To live one day at a time and to bless and help and touch as much people as I can day after day, one day at a time. Amen. David, my interest now is to be here to help my brother with his daughter, to help my sister with her 2 boys. That's my interest now. And to touch as many people one day at a time. Amen? Amen. The keepers of the house, your hands will get weak and tremble. The strong men bow down. Strong men, your legs. Strongest part of your body, your legs. Now, if you see an older individual, you notice their knees are kind of buckle, like they're carrying a weight and they're trying to sustain that weight. That's what Solomon says, the reality zone of life. The strong men will bow. The grinders cease because they are few. Grinders are your teeth. Eating becomes difficult because you have either all your teeth removed or you have just a few. And you have to find out which side to put the food on where your teeth are. Yes, class? Yes. Reality zone of life. I said my mom is not here, so I can speak on that. My mom lost all her teeth in her early 30s. All. It's not because it's her fault. They were so poor, didn't have toothpaste, didn't go to the dentist. Only time they go to the dentist was to extract, pull out teeth. But they were poor, no toothbrush, no toothpaste. So she lost all her teeth at an early age. So my mom was wearing dentures. So Solomon is bringing us here to the reality zone of life. It's a phase of life we will face, and you have to make up in your mind, I am going to embrace it and live it gracefully without frustrating yourself. See, old people still trying to look young. Stop it. I don't care how much short, tight pants you put on at 70, your days are over. Stop it. Enjoy your old age and be a blessing to the young people. Pass on wisdom and guidance. Amen, somebody? It irks me when I see old, and the fact is, they think they got it going on, and the wrinkles are giving them away. The wrinkles and the flaps. And you know me, sometimes I have to bite my tongue to tell them it's over. Give it up. You had your days. You had your days of being young. Now enjoy this reality zone of your life. Enjoy it. Live it up. Be at peace with it. Look at Michael. Michael is enjoying his gray. He's not trying to hide it. He's enjoying. My brother, Franklin, he's way younger than I am. But just naturally, he's just gray. And my brother, my sister always tease him, dye your beard. He said, girl, this is wisdom. He carries his gray beard with pride. He's not ashamed of it. I met somebody. I'm trying to get you because those of you that are here young, watching that are young, you're going to get to the reality zone of life and you have to prepare yourself mentally for it. My dad is 88. And if I want to get my dad mad with me, the pastor, it's to mention his age publicly. The man will be mad with me, mad for days. Dude, you're 88, admit it. You're getting old. Your days are coming to a close. The reality zone of life. Quick. Grinders are referring to your teeth. Those that look out through the windows grow dim. Windows, your eyes. I told him my story. One night I'm reading the Bible and reading a book. I had to get closer to the nightstand. I said, it's impossible. This is O.D. Joseph, man. I got good eyesight. This is it. No, something is wrong. They switched my books or something. And David, I realized I'm no longer the young buck anymore. I'm now in the reality zone of life. As you age, wear and tear. Went to check my eyes. She said, your eyes are fine, but you need reading glasses. You need?
Reading glasses.
And here I am today. Look like Sarah Palin. Amen, somebody. I remember one time when we were at the other building. The black little Bible I used to have, fine print. And I made a mistake one Sunday and brought it to church to preach from. And my God, everything looked blurry. I said, Jesus, help the preacher today. Age. Reality zone of?
Age.
Life. Let's hurry. So your eyes grow dim as you're getting older. Don't let the faith preachers make you do things and do things opposite of reality. Okay? Faith preachers are going to tell you, you don't need glasses. Throw those glasses away. You're wasting money. Admit it. It's part of life. Okay? And those that look through the windows grow dim, meaning your eyes will fail as you age. Verse 4. When the doors are shut in the streets, what are the doors that are shut in the streets? Your ears. One time, you could hear well. Now, even the loudest noise for you is you barely can hear it. Now you have to wear hearing aid. Why? It reminds us of reality that we are entering, or we're now at the reality zone of life where our bodies are failing. And you have to prepare yourself for that phase of life and not to frustrate yourself when you get there. Okay? You have to go through that phase gracefully and peacefully without fighting it. That's life. Okay? Look at verse 4. When the doors are shut in the streets and the sound of grinding is low, meaning something that is loud to you, you can barely hear it. When one rises up at the sound of a bird, if you notice, old people, for some unknown reason, they get up very early. And the slightest noise can awake them. Look what happened. And the sound of grinding is low. When one rises up at the sound of a bird. When the bird starts chirping, that old person is up. And the daughters of music are brought low. Now, back in the islands, in a certain time, and now we have become sophisticated and updated. When we didn't have clocks and watches back in those days, way back in those days in the islands, we tell time by the radio. So we have to wait for the radio announcer to announce the time and what it is, what time of the day it is. I remember when I was a little boy going to school, and if I'm dragging my feet to get ready for school, my mom would say, "Boy, it's 8 o'clock. R.W. Schambach is on. There was a popular preacher back in those days, would be on at 8 o'clock. And when it's 8 o'clock, we know, when he's on, we know it's 8 o'clock. So that's how we tell the time back in those days. Now, another way, back in the Caribbean Islands, before they had clocks and watches and could afford those things and just depended on radio, we tell the time, or we estimated the time by when the cock will crow in the morning. You have something called first cock would crow. Second cock would crow, meaning the first cock would be maybe around 4 o'clock. What time is it already? You remember the time? Maybe 4 o'clock? Something like that. So you know it's about 5:30 when you hear the hen, the cock, the male cock would crow, make this annoying sound. You know it's about 5:30 in the morning to get up. That's how we tell time back in those days. So Solomon is showing us here that as we get older people tend to get up very early in the morning, and they can be easily awakened. Okay, the chirping of a bird, they will be awakened to that. The crowing of the cock, they will be awakened to that. Look at the next verse. When one rises up by the sound of a bird, and the daughters of music are brought low. We're going to stop at verse 5. But the daughters of music are brought how? What exactly is Solomon talking about? The daughters of music are brought low. So let me explain that to you. What this is talking about is you might have been one of the best singers at one time. The older you get, you don't have the same melodious voice anymore. You think you got it, but you ain't got it. I hate to go to these traditional churches, religious churches, where an older person who once had it going on in their singing days, and now 60 and 70, still getting up trying to bring a number. Sit down. Let the young person bring it. Because hear what Solomon says. And the daughters of music are brought low, meaning you don't have it anymore. There's a crackling. Your voice is not melodious anymore. It's annoying now. One time it was nice, enjoyable. Listen to older person. An older person, when they're speaking, you can tell the person is aging because their voice is crackling. It's not the same. Is anybody following me? If somebody gets on the phone, you don't know who the person is, never seen the person, you can tell if it's a child, a middle-aged person, or older person by the sound of their voice. Why? Their voice will give them away. Yes, class, or no class? Okay? Their voice will give them away. So Solomon is saying here, and the daughters, all the daughters of music are brought low. The singing ability you once have is no longer there anymore. You can convince yourself you have it, but you don't. That melodious voice is not anymore. Why? Age. Yes, class? Yes. Look at the next verse, and we're closing it here. Also, let me say something about that all the daughters of music are brought low. This reminds me of this evangelist. His first wife died, and he was now in his late 70s, and he married this young girl in her 40s. And he jumped up on the stage and he said, I am as young as I was. He married this young girl, 40-something years old, and he's in his late 70s. And he's trying to convince the congregation he's young and strong because he married this young girl. And he can jump on the stage. You see, you're trying to do stuff to prove that you still got it. Doesn't mean you got it. Shortly after that, he died. I don't know if the girl killed him or what, but he died. Hey! Oh, man. My pastor is 70 years old in Hinesville, Georgia, 4 hours drive from here. I went to see him November 2021, a couple of months after my mom died. That's where he started for me. That's where I got my ordination from. My pastor is now 70 years old. I met my pastor in South Korea. He was an army chaplain when he was about 37, 38. At that time, he already lost his wife to diabetes. He was left to raise his 2 kids, a boy and a girl. He got remarried at 55. Marriage lasted for 1 year. The lady said she's not cut out for this ministry stuff. She's not cut out, so she left after 1 year. He got married at 55. So he got injured in the military. So he's getting his, what do you call that? He's getting disability. He's getting his retirement. So he's collecting every month from the military $10,000 plus. Okay? So I jokingly asked him a couple of days ago. I said, would you get married again, Bishop? He said, no. These young girls ain't getting my money. And he's talking the truth. Because they know what you got. Do they really love him or they love his wallet? So you have to make a distinction. So this guy jumped on stage and said, I'm young. Kenneth Copeland is 80-something years old. And he liked to prove to us he claims he's going to live to see 122. But he likes to prove to his congregation that he's strong and young. So every time he gets on the stage, and he get down and do some push-ups on the stage before he start preaching. Listen, whatever you do doesn't mean you can't stop the reality zone of life. Doing 10 push-ups doesn't mean you still got it. The clock is still ticking. Yes? Yes. Now let's look at this last one and we go home. Verse 5. Also, they are afraid of height. All the person is afraid of is called acrophobia. It's called? Acrophobia. It's a big word. Once in a while I have to use a big word to let you know I have some kind of intelligence, okay? Acrophobia means the fear of height. Older person doesn't like even going on a ladder. Fear of heights. Ladder, plane rides. They can't stand the sight of going on the 12th floor, 20th floor, and view the sight. They have acrophobia. Solomon says, look, and also they are afraid of, is that true, anybody? Older person is afraid of? Not even older person. Michael can't even go to a story. I'm just kidding. But there's some people, younger, don't like heights. My nephew, David here, he doesn't like to be in an elevator. It freaks him out. He feels like something is going to happen, it's going to get stuck, it's going to drop. He doesn't feel comfortable in an elevator. So if we're going in an elevator, I want to make sure I'm there with him to bring some comfort, because he doesn't like it. So if he doesn't like elevator, imagine an older person. Look, also they are afraid of height and the terrors in the way. Wait a minute, what does it mean, the terrors in the way? Meaning, they have now lost their confidence. They're no longer the same what they used to be. The terrors in the way, now they are afraid. Look what it says. The terrors in the way, meaning they are now afraid to go outside. Lost their confidence. What would an old person tell you? I'm staying indoors. These young generation crazy out there. Some of your older individuals, they tell you they feel safer in the house. They're not going out. And they'll tell you why. The crazy generation outside there. They're afraid that there is terror in the way. I'm not going out. They're afraid of going out. They're afraid of going out by themselves. They're afraid of the dark also. Okay? Let's continue. And of terrors in the way, when the almond tree blossoms. What's the almond tree? Meaning your hair will turn white or gray. We say white, but it's gray. Well, we say gray, but it's white. So we say, oh, the person has gray hair. Actually, it's white hair. Okay? So the almond tree here is talking about our hair will turn white. As we age, our hair will turn white. You can do what my dad does. My dad dies, he's at 88. Because he failed to realize. The guy fails David to accept the fact, Daddy, you're 88. You're in the reality zone of life. His wife, my stepmom, is 10 years younger. And if my dad and my stepmom are watching TV and they're advertising something, let's say a walking stick or some vitamins or some medication, my dad will look at his wife and say, Mag, that's for your old people, you know. The guy is 10 years older, but he's telling his wife, that's for you old people. Anybody? Are you hearing me, somebody? The guy is not owning up to the fact that he is now in the reality zone of life. He's 88. He fails to realize it. My dad acts as if he's going to live until Jesus comes back. At 88, I was telling the pastor in Jamaica yesterday on the way to the airport. I was telling him my dad at 88 still gets up every morning to run taxi. At 88. The preacher said, what? I said at 88, the man gets up every morning to run taxi. Think he's still got it going on. Anybody listening? Let's close. Ecclesiastes 12. So the almond tree blossoms, meaning it turns white. Okay? Something I want you to hear about your hair. It's going to either turn white or turn loose. In David's case and Michael's case, it turned loose. They are my friends. They ain't leaving the church. They are my friends. My neighbor, Clayton, is about 3 years younger than I am. He lives in Stone Mountain. When I first moved there, I went to see Clayton. Haven't seen him in many years. He's my boyhood days friend from boyhood days, my friend, my neighbor. So I went to see Clayton. He's now married with 2 kids. I saw Clayton. Clayton is bald. Here's my question, a dumb question I asked Clayton. Clayton, what happened to your hair? Clayton's response was, it's all gone. And he is comfortable. Yes, class? He is? Comfortable. He's comfortable. What annoys me most is when I see an older individual, especially a man, who have lost most of his hair up here. And back in his days, he had a ponytail and he's still holding onto a ponytail. It looks so ridiculous. I mean, the guy is dragging that ponytail around town. I mean, he's bald on top. Some have laid loose. They're gray, but he has a ponytail, still think he's young. Cut it off, man, it's over. Let that ponytail go to his grave. He's not letting go of that ponytail. What's my point? What's Solomon's point? We have to realize we have come to the reality zone of life. It's a phase of life. You can fight everything else in life, but one area of life you can't fight is the reality zone of life of old age. You cannot fight. Listen, you can fight as much as you can try, as long as you can, but I'm telling you, you're going to lose that fight. Right. I have to go. The almond tree blossoms, meaning hair turns white. Hear this. The grasshopper is a burden. The grasshopper is a burden. The grasshopper is a burden. Anybody know what's a grasshopper? There can be 2 connotations when it talks about the grasshopper is a burden. It can be 2 connotations, right? Let's look at one this morning. The grasshopper can be a burden. Let's use 2 connotations, and I'll use the main one. Can be a burden, meaning even a little grasshopper can be annoying to an older person. Can be annoying, can be frustrating, can be worrisome, can bring fear to that older person. Yes? Here's the second connotation. A grasshopper, if you look at a grasshopper, the creature that it is, it's made up, the way it looks, all all kind of curves, the way it shapes. It's the same way when we get old. Our body now is all kind of position. Yes? Second, the grasshopper drags along, crawls along, unless it's hopping. Most times it's dragging along, and hear this, it's dragging clumsily, inch by inch. And the same way as we age, we now have to use a walker for us to inch along. Inch along. Inch along. The reality zone of life. And listen, some people can't make it without this. They depend on this. Because their whole house, their body, is so weak and failing. They need an assistance, a crutch. And the grasshopper is like that. We're inching along. You have this as a help, as a crutch, but you're still inching along. Doesn't make you go faster. It just brings security as you're inching along. Keeping a balance. And you still have to be careful where you put it. Reality zone of life. Let's close with this. It says here, the grasshopper is a burden. And hear this. And desire fails. Desire? Fails. Desire? Fails. This is a good one. I told the preacher yesterday on our way back to Jamaica. On our way back from picking me up to the airport. Jamaica is very big. Some people don't know that. And this trip I went to the countryside. That's where I first got introduced to Jamaica. Many years ago, I went to the countryside, St. Elizabeth. You can fly into Kingston depends where I'm going in Jamaica. Most times, the last couple of times I flew into Kingston, depends where I'm doing ministry. This time I flew into Montego Bay because it's closer to St. Elizabeth, the country. Because a lot of curves and the roads are small, takes us about 3 hours to get to the airport, 3 hours drive. So my flight was 12:30 yesterday from Montego Bay to Philadelphia, and then switch planes from Philadelphia to Atlanta. So yesterday, to get to the airport on time for check-in time, my flight is 12:30. He had to pick me up at 7 in the morning. And we had this long trek and long drive. So on the way we were talking and driving, different conversations and different topics. And I was telling the preacher, my grandmother gave birth to 22 children. How many? 22. 22 children. My grandfather was not satisfied. He went outside, found different women to have more babies. He has 2 sons outside and I think 2 daughters outside from different women. And 22 from his wife. My grandmother gave birth to one set of twins that were 2 girls. They're now 68, 69 alive today. 2 girls, they survived. Every child that was a boy and a girl, every boy died at birth or months or days after or weeks after. Every boy. Every son died at birth or a couple days after. They worked hard back in those days, did farming. They needed those boys to do the manly work. Why would God take those 7 boys when he knows they need the help? That's why my mother at 69 and even earlier, her body was already worn out. Because in her days, she worked like a slave. With that unwanted slave, let's put it that way. That's how hard they worked. All of the girls. They all suffered with back problems, knee problems. My mom had all kind of issues in her body. Why? They worked hard in those days. So their body was now taking a toll on them. My grandfather got his wife pregnant all these times, so many times. Every boy died at birth. They had their own reason and they believe it was witchcraft that killed the boys. That's their belief. At one time, I believed it too. But 3-4 years ago, I believe God gave me a different reason why those boys died at birth. I don't believe it was witchcraft. I believe because they were so poor, they had 2 small little houses. And they were so poor, they slept on the floor on old clothes. I believe that ancestry would have happened or taken place. And God, who foresees things and knows things, took those boys out to save the family embarrassment. Because I believe that the sisters would be pregnant for their brothers. That's my reasoning and my thinking. I don't believe it was witchcraft. Why? They claim that they were living in the middle of 2 family members, cousins, who did witchcraft and voodoo and obeah, and threw something in the yard to cause the death of these children and cause them not to get a proper education. No, so I said no. Why? Because I played marbles in that same yard. I walked barefooted in that same yard. You catch my point? I still got an education. Are you hearing me? So I believe that God, who can foresee things, saw that if these boys are raised with their sisters, there would be ancestry in the family. And to save the family the embarrassment and save sisters giving birth to their own brothers and causing invalid children, let's do it this way. That's just my reasoning. I'm not saying God told me that. I'm saying that's my reasoning. Because preachers like to say, God told me, to make you feel like they have some clout with God. Okay? I'm not one of those preachers. What's this long story all about? Here's my long story. Desire will fail. At one time, my grandfather had it going on sexually. I watched him at 90-something years old, 80-something years old, in a house. Was it a housing? What do you call that? A place where you put older people. Hard of hearing. Hard of hearing. He's not a young buck anymore. He lost the desire sexually. Look what he says. He says here, verse something, and desire fails. What desire is this? Appetite for things fail. As you get older, you don't have the same appetite and zest anymore. You don't have the same sexual appetite anymore. Enjoy it now, you can do it. Because you ain't going to be a young buck anymore. You will lose that desire eventually. My grandfather, who had it going on, 22 children, 20-something children, was now in a nursing home. Feeble, hard of hearing, ain't got it anymore. Solomon says, you entered that reality zone of life where your appetite is no longer the same. Certain things you could have thrown down and eat, you can't do it anymore. You don't have the same appetite for that anymore. Certain things you once ate, you can't eat now. Desire fails. Why? We've entered the reality zone of life.